Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, could the Red Raiders be a road favorite as they travel to take on the Oklahoma Sooners in Norman, possibly for the final time? Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Glad to have you along for the ride again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Always appreciate being your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. And Chris, we are back at it with hope still very much alive in West Texas as it relates to the Red Raiders' unlikely pursuit of an NCAA tournament bid. We talked last week about whether or not maybe a little too soon. Are we dreaming too early? Should we tap the brakes? Hell no, was the resounding answer, not only from Locked On Texas Tech viewers, listeners, but kind of sounded like from ourselves as well. We were ready to dream. Texas Tech rewards that with a road win over the West Virginia Mountaineers, and it was so much fun. Why not do it again as we're back at it from Norman, Oklahoma, man. Great to be back with you and looking ahead to another big opportunity for Texas Tech to continue to make some waves.
Yeah, so obviously tonight in Norman is a big one, but let's kind of set the scene there because I think I remember telling you last week, if you win one of your next two road games and you can win your two home games left, I do think you are very much in the conversation. Well, you've won one of those two road games, but now let's get greedy here because, look, this is going to be a fringe quad 1, quad 2 game when all is said and done based on kind of the criteria and how this net ranking kind of fluctuates as the results start to come in every night as the next couple of weeks of the season roll. But, the West Virginia game, that's a quad 1 win because of where West Virginia is ranked. And because it was an away game for you, it's a quad 1 win. So you've now put together this 3-game winning streak, and all 3 are quad 1 wins. So you are 4-10 in the league. Again, it's maddening that you're 4-10. Nobody's okay with that, but you've given yourself new life, and I think that you've given yourself a chance. And now it's up to you to kind of, and you don't have, if you were a cat, you're maybe on your 8th or 9th life here. You don't have you don't have much opportunity still, but because of the league that you play in, every one of these games on paper looks really good, and you just have to win some of them. Okay, and I think this is tonight is a winnable game, Casey. I mean, it just is. Oklahoma. They're reeling right now. They took Texas to overtime over the weekend, and I thought, okay, because we were flying back from Morgantown, and the Wi-Fi was semi working on the plane, and you could kind of follow the end of that game, and you watch Oklahoma, and they have a chance to win that game, and it goes into overtime, and we're all sitting there talking, okay, what's the result that you want here? From a Red Raider standpoint, what do you want? I think we all had kind of decided. I think you want Oklahoma just to go ahead and lose that game. Look, you've beaten Texas, so it's going to make your win look better that Texas has, if they get another win. And if Oklahoma loses, at some point you just wonder, did they just mail it in? Did they just kind of check out? And I don't expect for there to be 2,000 or 3,000 people in this building tonight.
I was going to say, check out, not when you're going back to be spurred on by the frenzy at the Lloyd Noble Center, Chris.
It's easily the how should I phrase it? I don't know what to say.
Lamest.
Okay, great word. It's not easy because you haven't exactly won many times there. Okay, to be fair.
Yeah.
But and you kind of have to manufacture your own energy at times because it's never a hostile environment. There's not a lot of energy in the building. Oklahoma is always pretty good. When Lon Kruger was there, again, he took them to the Final Four.
Yeah.
They're still pretty good now. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of people will tell you that's the trap that you can't get fall into. Because if I'm Mark Adams, this is the card that I'm playing and I think he has played repeatedly going into this game. Look, they're last place in the Big 12 Conference. They're struggling right now. There's not a ton left for them to play for. In fact, they're on their ninth life. If they're a Cat, they maybe have to either win out or win the Big 12 tournament to get in. They've changed their starting lineup. But just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they beat what most people would feel like is the number one team in the country, okay, Alabama, and they housed them, okay? Don't exactly understand what happened on that particular day, but I think Alabama comes in as a 1 seed, okay? And I'm telling you, Oklahoma wore them out. And so this is the same team that's capable. It's like I know what they're capable of, but I also know what they're capable of. So, because they're not playing great right now, but that is something you have to be, weary of tonight in Norman.
Yeah, I've never really gotten why you can't put together a vibe at home for the Sooners. I mean, blue blood football program. And this is one of the things that kind of cracks me up in general when we talk about quality fan bases, Chris. Like, oh, the basketball fans in Kansas, they're special people. Oh, the football fans in Norman, they're special people. Well, the football fans in Kansas ain't special people. The basketball fans in Norman must not be special. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody has their moment, and then there are moments they just don't give a so. Hopefully that's actually going to be this moment coming up, because it would behoove the Red Raiders, I would imagine, if nobody cared enough to turn out for this team. I don't know exactly, Chris, how to describe the last meeting, but I was kind of thinking about the way I felt as a Tech basketball fan at that time. And I guess I would go with, como se dice, I still had hope. Remember, we're like, yo, let's not fall to 0-3. Let's collect the win against the Sooners. It was early on in Big 12 play. I think you were 10-4 coming into that game. And it was also one of those that reached the heights of frustration. In some ways, as you have often been, you were a little bit shorthanded, but you still are there in a home environment. It's a tight game, overtime game, and it's one of those that, like some others, I just remember pulling my hair out about at the end of the night.
Yeah, this was, I mean, that's a great way to describe it. I think, like it was a frustrating night, and you were kind of leery about what was to come after you go through this. So let's take everybody back to January the 7th at United Supermarkets Arena.
But first, today's episode brought to you by Built Bar. You're looking for a delicious treat, but you're not looking for all the fat, all the calories. I got what you need. It's Built Bar. What makes them so good? For starters, covered in 100% real chocolate. You got it. Real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, or coconut almond. Not sure how they do it, but they taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better, they're good for you. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Even better now, not only can you get them at BuiltBar.com, but you can get them at your nearest Walmart, your nearest Sam's Club. Get there today and get in on something that tastes great and is great for you. You can thank me later after you've tried your first Built Bar.
Let's take everybody back to January the 7th at United Supermarkets Arena. One of your only Saturday home games that you've had in league play. And it was right out of the gate. And I think you had that game played, and there's no Bacho, there is no Pop Isaacs, there is no Fardaws. I mean, he was, Pop was out with a concussion. Fardaws was several weeks away from still being able to, I think, play. And I say that he was maybe a week or so away from being able to help you and get on the floor. And then you had, because I think actually, now that I say that, I think Fardaws was actually 1 week away, because I think this was on the 7th, the 14th in Austin is when he debuted. But point still stands. You had no Fardaws, you had no Bacho, you had no Pop Isaacs. And then Robert Jennings, if you'll remember, he goes down at some point late in the first half, early the second, with like a kind of a muscle strain. He could not finish this game. So really, this is just the old banner. Davion Harmon, Jalen Tyson is really the only true weapons you feel like you've got.
I mean, you had 7 guys. After Jennings went down, you had 7 guys that you played.
That's exactly right. And to that point in the season, we hadn't seen Lamar Washington do a lot yet. We hadn't seen Kerwin Walton have some of his moments yet. Demarion Williams really hadn't had some of his moments yet. And, I just remember, and yet you still beat Oklahoma. You almost still pulled it off. You get outscored, I think, 12-7 in overtime. You only make 2 threes in this game. And it was just a maddening game because you thought you still almost pulled it off. You didn't get it done. You knew it would come back to bite you. And here's the crazy thing. You know how many games? Well, I'll make the double point here. Oklahoma and West Virginia, they've won 1 true road game this season. Each of them. Guess where it was?
Don't, Chris. Yeah. Don't do it to me.
However, it was in Lubbock. So, however, you've negated it, the West Virginia one, because you won at their place, so you split. And you have the chance to do that versus Oklahoma tonight. And if you win there, you don't look back. You get greedy and go, man, it would have been nice to sweep and all those things. Not realistic at this point. But if you win in Norman, you negate it, and then all of a sudden you don't feel as bad about letting some of those opportunities slip. Again, you were very shorthanded that night. So much of what you are now, I think you're a completely different team now than you were then. Not just health, but I think you figured out how to play and what you can and can't do to a certain extent. Not that it's very flawed at points, but still there's a lot to like about your team. Because I just remember coming away from that game going, you have no perimeter game. You have, they made 9 threes against you. You made 2. That was the difference in the game. Okay. And I think now we feel like, on any given night, Pop can do it. O'Banner can do it. Jalen Tyson can do it. Harmon is good for 1 or 2 potentially a game. Kerwin Walton is highly flammable. So I just think you're a much different team now than you were then. You like that? And
that description.
Yeah. Well, he is. It's like, and now he's having to put the ball on the floor because I think on every scouting report, Kerwin Walton, they were like, don't let this guy shoot a 3. Do not. Because he's, I think, 40% plus or whatever in league play. So I guarantee you, as they're going over personnel the night before these games, they're telling their guys, shooter, DOC, which stands for dead on the catch. Don't let him get a clean look off. And the last couple of weeks it's been working, but you've been living to tell about it.
We will get to, coming up in just a minute, the potential significance, I guess, of this game as you possibly walk the hallowed halls of the Lloyd Christmas Center. I mean, no, that's right, Lloyd Christmas Center for the final time. We'll get to that in just a moment. But, Chris, before we leave the last go-around between these two teams, one thing that certainly stood out to anybody watching was that it seemed like Oklahoma was red and Davion Harmon was the bull. The dude went off, and obviously there's some shared history between those two. Not to suggest that there's any acrimony or anything like that, but it seemed like he really wanted to show out against his old team, and he did. And I would love to see much more of it the second time around, as he'll be back in front of those Oklahoma faithful. I don't know if they remember him in Norman, but man, he seemed highly motivated last time around the Sooners were on the schedule.
I think he scored 21 of your final 23 points in that game, unless I'm remembering incorrectly. But I think I remember that he really tried to take over and kind of will you to victory, because I think Jalen Tyson was like 1 of 8. They only had scored 4 points. I mean, but yeah, Davion Harmon just went nuts at the very end and kind of single-handedly got you to overtime and tried to keep you in it. Wasn't good enough to do it. And what's funny is, in recent games, he has been that dude to where he has willed you to win and those things. But yeah, Davion left Oklahoma a couple years ago. There's really not anybody still there coaching player-wise that I mean, the announcers, Toby Rowland, who calls their games, asked me about him before the last game. He's like, how's DH doing? I said, he's doing great. I said, he's one of the older guys and talks a lot. This is a quiet team. We need somebody like that. But there's not anybody really in the program, any connection there. But yeah, the fans will remember him, certainly. And I don't think he left frustrated or angry. He just was looking for a different opportunity and things like that. But he'll get a lot of memories walking back into that building tonight, playing that game. for what I think could be Texas Tech's last trip to Norman. So, at least basketball wise.
Yeah. Let's go. We'll get to that in just a second. Before we leave the personnel, the recipe that we've seen, Chris, I alluded to it wrapping up last week as far as like projecting what you expect this team to do from game to game. Personally, I feel really different than I did a little while back because it's almost an entirely different team. I don't want to say entirely, but a different recipe. You got some guys just back in uniform available to play basketball on game days. That's nice. But you've also got guys, as you mentioned, it's not just the health factor, but guys who seem to be progressing individually. We've touched on here or there, and it hasn't been as consistent as you want. But, guys like Jennings or Lamar Washington or even Elijah Fisher here or there that seem to be maybe coming along as the season gets later into it. But with Fardaws Aimaq in the mix, Pop Isaac's back on the floor. Clearly, you've got some different options, different opportunities than you had previously. I'm just wondering from your perspective, we've only seen this now once, obviously, in Morgantown with Pop back on the floor as well. But what did you kind of see there that might have been different in the way that they were used? Or that could also, I guess, connect a lineup question. We saw Pop come off of the bench. What do you make of moving forward, the recipe, so to speak, that we might see now that it seems like, at least with Big Maple, you can count on him being a central part?
Well, and I think your point is very valid with the timing of which you asked that, because I think the way Oklahoma plays, Fardaws is key and a key figure with the way he plays. And let me explain.
But first, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And if you're a business owner or a hiring manager for one, building your team is essential to your business's success. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs is rated #1 by small business owners whenever it comes to connecting your business with those job candidates that meet your criteria. They'll help you quickly attract the most qualified candidates with open targeting tools that go well beyond just resume data. They'll use insights from your job post company and their 875 million member profiles to put your job post in front of only the most qualified people. So identify those qualified candidates with LinkedIn Jobs faster than with anyone else. It's why, again, small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find those candidates you want to talk to faster today by posting your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply.
I think the way Oklahoma plays, Fardaws is key and a key figure with the way he plays. And let me explain. So Oklahoma, they really want to play a grinded out, half court, kind of ugly type game. That they will let you out rebound them because they're so worried about getting back on defense. They want to make you play in the half court. They want to slow the game down. This is a team that on purpose, to a certain extent, they only average 66 a game in league play. You're averaging well into the 70s. So they're going to want to play a slower, more, kind of a rock fight, if you will. That's where Fardaws, I think, can really excel, because I think that's where he's not a gazelle running up and down the floor that you're going to throw it to finish on a fast break. I mean, that's Davion Harmon's game, but I think that, this is where Fardaws excels, and I think that changes the dynamic quite a bit tonight with how, again, if he can stay out of foul trouble. Oklahoma doesn't have just a ton of skilled and experienced size. So if you can get some semblance of Fardaws and approaching a double-double, boy, I like your chances. I really do, because I think his work on the glass, I just think if he can score for you a little bit, it just really opens everything up, because, again, they're going to try to make you execute in the half court. And I think far too often we see Davion Harmon having to just bail you out and do some different things. I think Pop Isaac's playing in this game just because of his ability to just pull the trigger at any point. And when there's not anything there, Oklahoma's got to recognize it. And all these little things open up things for others. Okay. So because you've got the skill sets of all these guys, they can't guard everything. It's just up to you to not force it and to read what is there and make the right play, because you've got some players now that I think that can take advantage, even as good as Oklahoma is and with their half court defense, that you can punish them a little bit. You just can't let them, shoot it like crazy. Grant Sherfield and Jalen Hill, and they've got a really good freshman in Uzan that I think does a good job. You just don't want them to catch fire on this night, because I think this is a winnable game for you. And I'm not going to be surprised at all if you're favored in this game, even if it's just a slight favorite. Yeah. So,
I'm curious. Do you think that the Isaac's off the bench deal in Morgantown, was that injury working back in a different way related? Was that just purely strategy related? How did you see that working out? And do you have any guesses about maybe lineup perspectives?
I think they went into this with Pop returning, saying, we're not sure, again, I hadn't played in several weeks. Yeah. We think he's close to 100%, or we're not going to send him out there. He's bouncing around and everything like that. But until you get in the flow of the game, you're not real sure, how bouncy is he? How is this wind there? Is he in shape? Can he make shots? Or is it just is the timing and all those things, are they off? But I think they went into it thinking, okay, let's bring him off the bench because we want to ease him into this. And then let's see how he plays. And that'll dictate how many minutes we think he can handle. And I think once he comes in, he bangs in the first three. And I think he looks no worse for the wear. He looks just like he did before he left.
Yeah, and was that first three the hesitation little cross? And because that
it was impressive. Yeah,
not only no rust, that was like mid-season form. That was slick.
And you knew that mentally that was big for him, just to see the ball go through the basket. I thought, because so many times guys are, and it sucks. This is just the way basketball works. Is that when that first shot goes in, it's like, okay, it's going to be a good day. When the first shot doesn't go in, you start to press a little bit until you get a next shot, and then then if the second one misses, you're like, damn it, I'm terrible at this game. I suck. My confidence is gone. But he was hot early, and I think it carried him. But he played nearly the 30 minutes. I don't know what they'll do. Honestly, if it was me and everybody was okay with it, I think you have to work through the ego and the chemistry and all these things. If you can sell it, hey, we're better with you coming off the bench. Hey, look, you're going to finish the game. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Is he one of your 5 best guys? 1,000%.
Yeah.
But are you better with him coming off the bench and him finishing the game? I kind of tend to think that you are. But that's for Coach Adams to kind of work his way through some of those details, and you got to massage egos. You got to talk guys in and out of things and kind of get a good feel for the chemistry and all that. But I think that's a good button that I would push, certainly.
Really interesting to see. Wonder what it'll look like this time around with Oklahoma. Chris, to wrap it up before we're out of here, odds that this is the final basketball journey for the Red Raiders to Norman, Oklahoma. What do you think?
So as I was preparing for this trip, it kind of just dawned on me that this couldn't, because look, the Red Raiders are not going back to Norman in football, so I've made my last trip there. I don't know, baseball is still going to go there this spring. From a basketball standpoint, this could in fact be your last trip to Norman. Let me explain. You are only, I think, guaranteed one rival or kind of one protected matchup. I think next year is kind of what the schools have been led to believe. And you're going to play 18 conference games next year. So that will stay the same. But I think they're going to try to let everybody play everybody at least once. However, some of those games are going to be, you have to go to Orlando, but the Central Florida doesn't come here, or whatever. There's going to be some one-offs, and that's going to be at some level kind of frustrating, because that's the beauty of what you've had with the round robin is you don't have to think about it. Everybody gets a return trip. You don't. I mean, that's just the way this stuff has worked. And the only rival that you've been promised is that you're going to be partnered with Texas. So you're going to get a home and home with them. Everything else is off limits. So Oklahoma could come to Lubbock, or you could in fact have to go to Norman next year without them coming to Lubbock. We're not sure how that's going to work. So I don't know what they'll spit out when they release the schedule, but that's the reality of it. And that's, in fact, the way it could go with every school in the Big 12 other than Texas. You're going to miss some of these teams coming to Lubbock, and then you're going to have to make return trips and then vice versa. But I do believe that the Horns will come back to Lubbock at least one more time. But, yeah, you may not be going to Norman again anymore, and I won't miss it. I think it's always been a tougher place for Texas Tech to play. Not that it's a rowdy environment or anything like that. It's just another road venue that you have a hard time winning in. So,
well, you got a clock keeper that can't count. Ask Bob Knight. I mean, that's hard to deal with.
Golly, man, that's going. And you know what's crazy about that is I never would have thought when Kelvin Sampson left Oklahoma, when he kind of had it rolling there. That was Hollis Price, Quantus White. I mean, they had some teams back then, back whenever Coach Knight was there. And Oklahoma was relevant, and they were a pain to deal with. I never would have thought that he would have left, gone to coach Indiana and all that, and he would, at this point, be at a different school, even being the number one, kind of close to a number one seed or number one team in the country with University of Houston. It's just wild, his renaissance, if you will.
It's really a feel-good story, and I'm sure all the laws, the NCAA laws he broke, he learned his lesson during his show cause time. He knows not to text in that way or at that time anymore.
And that's what's crazy. Is he got popped for making like illegal phone calls and text or what? Because I don't even think texts were even around back then. He made too many phone calls. With all the rules going on now, it's laughable that he was even popped for that, because Bill Self is still he got suspended for a few non-conference games, and he's just rolling. And the FBI's got him on tape. I mean, come on, man.
The FBI, and we still have the chance to include a mention of the FBI when talking college basketball. What a wild world! But yeah, no reason now not to suspect that everything's on the up and up at Houston with Kelvin Sampson. I'm sure they're minding their P's and Q's. Best wishes. And best wishes to you, Chris, as you experience Texas Tech basketball on the road once again. It has been a little shop of horrors, but most recently, you get over the hump and you do it in a tough place against what I think is a better basketball team. So we'll see what you do with an opportunity coming up from Norman, man. Enjoy the game, and I enjoyed the time. Thanks for it as always.
Yeah, man, enjoyed it. This is not a night tonight where you have the more talented team. You just have to go get one, and to keep giving yourself a chance. And if you do, you're going to set yourself up for a very meaningful home game on Saturday, which I believe is sold out already, versus TCU. So I'm here for it. We'll keep the hope alive. Let's see what happens in Norman tonight. But either way, this coming Saturday will be a monster game for these Red Raiders.
You bet. I can't wait to have them back here in West Texas, and can't wait to be back with you on the other side for another edition of Locked On Texas Tech. Thanks for making us your first listen once again. Hope you'll make Locked On College Basketball your second listen right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. That's Locked On College Basketball. He's Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. We'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.